Hello, students. Welcome to EasyElimu Learning Simplified. I'm your teacher, Mr. Stanley Ombogo. So, about today, or in this episode, rather, I want us to look at Chapter 2 summary by looking at the episode or the episodes that we have in Chapter 2. But before we do that, before we go to that, let us have a recap of what we learned in the previous episode, that is about the episodic approaches or the episodes that we were able to identify in chapter 1. So just something briefly about chapter 1. Remember, chapter 1 uh, introduces six main characters. We say that chapter 1 introduces six main characters. So who are these characters? Number one, we have got Professor Kimani. We have got number two, Comrade Melusi. We have got number three, Engineer Tahir. We have Pastor Chiamaka. Then we have Dr. Abiola Afolabi. We also have that is the journalist from the Gambia News. That is Fiona Fiona Mackenzie. So the first four names that I've mentioned, remember, I did not mention them. Also, I have not mentioned them in the order uh, that they were booked in at Seamount Hotel. So the first four, that is Professor Kimani, Pastor Chiamaka, Engineer Tahir, and Comrade Melusi are the ones who are introduced as they first, check in at the Simon Hotel, which brings us to the first episode that we mentioned in the previous episode. So we talked about four episodes. That is the guests being booked in at the Simon Hotel. Then in the second episode, that was still talking about these four guests, or rather the four strangers. There was an episode about a call. That is, the four are called by an unknown person who only identifies himself as the guide. Then the third episode was now, remember, I talked about again two characters in the list of the six that are introduced in chapter 1. So we have Dr. Abiola Folabi and Fiona Mackenzie. So the third episode talks about an interview that Fiona Mackenzie, the Gambian journalist, is having with Dr. Afulabi, who we are also told is attending a summit. So he is invited by the president. Then on to the last episode in chapter 1, we talked about hosting the summit. Hosting the summit. That is now when the heads of state, the 49 foreign heads of states, had gathered uh, at Pinnacle Hotel to debate over a document that was believed to contain a way to develop Africa, the Way Omega document. So that's all about chapter 1. And today on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is actually very brief, as it only talks about one major episode. And that episode is the Agda late night call at Seamount Hotel. Remember, we came across Agda. We came across Agda uh, in the first in the first in the first chapter. So early in chapter 1, second episode, uh, we talked about, we came across the guide who called all the four strangers after they had settled in their hotel rooms. So this time round, Pastor Chiamaka again receives a call from the same caller we came across. So Pastor Chiamaka also received a briefcase, and the guides, so there are briefcases that they received earlier. So the guide wants to be sure if Pastor Chiamaka looked at the content in the briefcase. So he responds and he affirms that he indeed saw a letter from Agda. So that is the first thing that he affirms he saw, a letter from Agda. Then he affirms that he also saw a copy from Way Omega. And lastly, he affirms that he also saw a copy of Path Alpha. Dear students, at this moment, I believe you are well conversant with these two documents that we are talking about. That is the Way Omega and the Path Alpha documents. So just to remind you, for those who may have forgotten, the Way Omega document is a document that talked about, it contained a document that had a way to develop Africa. So about the Path Alpha document, so there is another document, a different document. So it is a develop strategy that Agda feels and believes is a what? Is a superior alternative. So they believe it is a superior alternative as compared to the Way Omega document, or rather the document that contains the way to develop Africa. So the guide then tells Pastor Chiamaka that Agda wants him to go through these documents. So besides the three documents that we have talked about, that is the three items, the letter from the Agda, Way Omega document, and the Path Alpha document, Pastor Chiamaka also says and confirms that he saw some leaflets, pamphlets, brochures from Agda, and a mobile phone, that they would be using to communicate more often. So the guide gives instructions to Pastor Chiamaka and tells him that the phone is to be kept safe and, most importantly, on. Why? So this is because he would be calling more often, and sometimes even when Pastor Chiamaka isn't expecting. How interesting. So Pastor Chiamaka has a request. He really wants to know. He really wants the caller to reveal the real name, so rather his identity. But again, the caller angrily retorts by saying that the name is not important. What is important is communicating to you when there is need, not just a normal communication, but communication when there is need. So Pastor Chiamaka here gets a little confused when he is ordered to shut up by the caller and to stop talking back. So he is only to obey. He is only to obey, which makes him without an option, but to submit to the caller. So he is submissive. He is submissive. The caller further informs him that they are on the same mission. They are on the same mission, and they should be working together. So the caller says he can't reveal himself, and the reason is because the mission is still in a very sticky place, a sticky situation. We can could talk about a critical state. So Pastor Chiamaka talks about trust issues. Then the caller responds by telling him to refer to the letter that he received from from Agda. The guide reminds Pastor Chiamaka to be familiar with these two documents. I believe you now know the documents that we are talking about. So he is reminded to be familiar with all these documents. So again, there is a dialogue, there is a conversation here about Pastor Chiamaka being seen at the bar by the caller. So the caller does this. He asks Pastor Chiamaka what business he had been where in the bar. Then Pastor Chiamaka kind of felt a lump of anger rise in his throat. But he answered the caller by saying he only had a soft drink. And what's the name of the drink? It was a Pepsi. So Pastor Chiamaka replies by saying that it was only a soft drink. So he also feels suspicious that the caller may be an invisible executioner. And he's forced to do what? So he's remorseful. So he apologizes for having been at the bar. And again, he says that this won't happen again. Another mobile phone rings in the Simon South Wing, and it is now Comrade Melusi who answers. So apparently the caller did what? Called all the four strangers or the four men that we had discussed about earlier on. So the same also happened in the East Wing, this time round answered by Professor Kimani. Then lastly, it rings in the North Wing where Engineer Tahir is. So Engineer Tahir also speaks with the caller, and this time round, remember, is about 11 p.m. And remember when the call started, it was around 9 p.m. So thanks for watching, and just a number of questions that you can answer offered is number one, in this chapter, in chapter 2, we have come across Agda. So can you really tell us what Agda means in full? Then the second question, we have talked about the four men who checked in at Seamount Hotel. Can you give their names and the order in which they were booked in at the hotel? That is the second question. That is the second question. Then the last question that you can maybe use to warm yourself up is in chapter 1. In chapter 1, we did an analysis of the cover page. So the question is, can you try and explain, or can you try and tell your friend your interpretation, your own interpretation of the image that we have on the book? So thank you, and thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next episode. Bye.